So I'll start the recording. Okay, so we just finished the pre-class Q&A. So now we'll start the actual class session. So welcome again, everyone, to the 11th session of BW for HANA training. In the last class, we saw the introduction of CDS views, and we created a very simple CDS view, which was based on your already existing standard CDS view, which is I underscore sales document. And we did a full load as well, right? So we had a data flow. So if let's go back to the data flow, this one. So we had a data flow where we had the source system as our S4 with ODP CDS source system type. Then we had a data source. This data source does not support any delta load. It only supported full. So we did a full load and excuse me. And then we loaded the data in this ADSO. This ADSO was of type inbound table plus active table, meaning your staging with compress. So sorry, this is DTP. So if I double click on this ADSO, you will see the property was staging with compress. So staging with compress means there'll be inbound table, data will come there, and when you will activate, the data will be moving to your active table, and then it will be removed from the inbound table. So DSO, ADSO details, everything we will discuss tomorrow. So today we will finish the CDS view based extraction, and tomorrow we'll start with the ADSO. So there we'll discuss all these properties and all the types of ADSOs. So then from this ADSO, we move the data up to the standard ADSO with change log. So change log was there, and this was a standard ADSO. So that was the flow we created for the sales header full mode. And this was delta. So the data from the data source to this staging layer ADSO was full. The DTP was full, but this DTP, if you see, was delta DTP, meaning it will take the data from the inbound table, and then only you can activate the data in the lower level ADSO, because there was no change log. There is no change log in the staging layer ADSO. That's why you have to first make sure that the inbound table sends the data upwards, and then only you can activate it. Now, what we'll do is we'll create a delta flow. Okay, either you can create a delta flow separately, or you can change this to delta. So let's change this to delta and see if we can do that. So for the delta extraction using CDS view, you have two options. The first option is annotation based delta, which uses ODQs. And the second option is generic delta without annotation, without using ODQs. So when I say without annotation, that doesn't mean that I will not use any annotation. These annotations are definitely required, but there are certain delta specific annotations which will enable the CDS view to have delta in S4. So within S4, the CDS view will be capable to execute or identify delta, and then it will use ODQ, and then from ODQ, BW will take the data. Okay, that is called delta at S4 side, using the annotation and using the ODQs. But there is another type of delta, which is generic delta, which BW will identify the delta records, not the CDS view in S4. BW will ask the CDS view to get the data only for a particular selection for identifying the delta. That is called generic delta, which is BW owned. That means BW is the system which is identifying the delta, not this S4 CDS view. Okay, S4 CDS view can only give you full, but BW is somehow enabling, and we'll see how that somehow is. BW system is enabling the delta and passing the filter conditions to CDS view, and CDS view is just giving the data for that filter condition. That's all. CDS view itself will not be capable to identify delta. So first what we'll do is we will go to the generic delta. We'll see how it works, and meaning BW will identify the delta, not the CDS view S4. And then we will, the next second one, we will see how we will enable CDS view to identify delta and then give it to ODQs. The first one, which is I'm going to demonstrate, is generic delta. And generic delta, they don't use ODQs. Okay. And we will not add any special annotation here in the CDS view. So let me close this. I don't want to save. And we'll open the CDS view again. This was the CDS view. Okay, just making sure that whatever changes we did are not there. We have the original definition of the CDS view. Okay, so now we have the data source. This data source is delta. It is not delta, it is only full. If I have to change this property of data source to delta, then I have an option in BW. Okay, and the option is override delta without deletions. That means this is after images only. CDS view will give after images. Override delta without deletion. It cannot identify deletions. You can identify changes, but you will not be able to identify deletions. So that is a drawback for this type of generic delta. But it is possible to identify changes. And this is why it is saying BW local, meaning BW system will be responsible to identify the delta. Now, when you change this, then this will be enabled. On the right side, you will see delta properties will be enabled. If you don't have this, then delta property will be disabled. So when you click on this, override delta without deletion, delta properties will be enabled. And when you expand that, you will see we have generic delta field type, and then the actual field name, and then the interval, lower limit or upper limit interval. So right now, the type of generic delta is numeric pointer timestamp, date, if you have a date field, if you have a timestamp short field, and if you have a timestamp long field, like UTC timestamp. So numeric pointer means if there is a field in your data source which gets incremented with every change. Say for example, you have a sequence number 1, 2, 3, 4, and every time somebody makes a change, a new sequence number gets generated. So you can use that particular field as your numeric pointer. Numeric pointer means a number which gets incremented. Then you have numeric pointer of timestamp. If your timestamp behaves as a numeric pointer, meaning timestamp, of course, automatically timestamp is a new timestamp. It is a new number. You can use the timestamp, but your timestamp have to be in a format which can be identified as a sequential number, right? So there are different data types in your ABAP. You have date, you have timestamp, you have integer, and you have character. These are the 4 most frequently used data types. If you are saying that I want to use timestamp as my numeric pointer, meaning the timestamp should behave as an integer. So you might have to change it to an integer. So if you want to use timestamp as your sequential number. So sometimes it is possible, sometimes it is not possible, because timestamp is a separate data type. Okay, and that does not behave as an integer. And that is not also identified or interpreted by the ABAP compiler as an integer. And that's why we usually don't use the timestamp as numeric pointer. We usually use an actual integer field as numeric pointer. But there is an option given to you. If you want to convert it your timestamp to an integer and then use that, you can very well do that. Then we have the third type as date. That means if you have a date field, then you can use that date field to identify delta. And then you have timestamp short and timestamp long. So there are 2 different formats for timestamp. Timestamp short is I think this YYYY 4 mm6 DD 8 minute 10 hour minute seconds. How many it is? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14. So 14, total 14 characters is your timestamp short. Okay, and then you have the same format, which is your mm YYYY MMDD HH. 1 second. Yeah, so your HH MMSS, and then you have your milliseconds also. Okay, milliseconds. Now that can go up to, I think, 25 or 30 or whatever. There's a long format also. I think it is 25 if I'm not wrong. So that is called, let's say it is 25. That is timestamp long. So both formats are given here. Timestamp short 14 and timestamp long, which is UTC, universally coordinated time, which is UTC format, long format, which is there in the tables. In S4HANA tables, you will find the timestamp format, long format. So that is also there. So you can use either timestamp short or you can use timestamp long. In our CDS view, we have last change date time. This is date and this is date time. Okay, so we have both fields. We have date fields. We have a date field and we have a timestamp field. And same thing you can see here. We have a date field which is our DATS 8, and we have a timestamp field which is long format. We have a UTC timestamp long format, YY, MM, DD, HH, MM, SS, and then your milliseconds, microseconds, etc. Right? So you have a long format also. So we have both date and the timestamp. Now I can use here in the extraction, I can use both date and I can use timestamp. What is the problem if I use date? I can use date also here, date of last change. One second, let me put it here. Right, so I can use date and I can use timestamp also. What will be the problem? Can anybody tell me what can be a problem if I use date here and not timestamp?
For the same date, if the new record is there, so it will not understand.
Exactly, it will overwrite. It will overwrite, meaning if your data is changing 3 times in a day, the only data you will have is your last third one. If you have a date, that means changes happening within the day, you will not be able to identify and differentiate. So that's why date is not a good field for your delta identification. If your data is changing only once in a day, yes, of course, it's fine. But if the data is changing multiple times in a day, that's going to be a problem. And that's where we will use timestamp short and timestamp long. So which one we have in our data source? We have timestamp long, right? Yeah. UTC timestamp in long form, YYM, MDD, HHMM, and then millisecond, microsecond. Sorry. So then let's use that. And let's see if we can. I'll just minimize this. So we will say last change date. Okay. And then you have safety intervals, lower interval and upper interval. So lower interval and upper interval are relevant for a data source. Actually, it is there for almost all data source, and this lower and upper safety limit ensures that you don't miss any documents, you don't miss any data. Okay, so let me quickly jump to a little bit of a theory on the safety intervals. Yeah, so this is the safety interval concept. For people who are aware, this will be basic knowledge, but let me still reiterate this. So what is the concept? The concept is there to save you from missing any data. That means the concept was introduced to not miss any data. And how that is done? So say for example, we have the extraction, the first delta ran, okay, and then this was the time. So say for example, if we have this time is what, 9:30, at 9:30 your extraction started, say for example, right? So and you have a safety interval of maybe 10 minutes, for example, right? So what will happen is when your delta will start, it will go from the beginning of the time. That means if you have not given a lower limit, say for example, right? Even if you have given a lower limit for the first time when it runs, it will not consider the lower limit. It will go and fetch everything right from the beginning of the time till your time of extraction minus the upper limit. That means if 10 minutes is you have defined as your upper limit and 9:30 you have triggered it, till 9:20 it will extract the records and not till 9:30. Okay, that is the upper limit which will come into picture. Now, when you run your second delta, now the lower limit, say lower limit is also 10 minutes and upper limit both will be considered. For the first run, only upper limit will be considered. The lower limit will not be considered. For second run, your lower limit will be considered, meaning now say for example, you started at 10 o'clock. First was 9:30 and now it is 10 o'clock. So now it will go to the last time when it was extracted, which was 9:30, and it will subtract the lower limit. That means if it is 10 minutes and 9:30 minus 10 minutes is 9:20, so it will go to 9:20 and then extract the data till 9:50 because 10 is the upper limit also. So basically what it's doing is, even though you extracted at 9:30, it is still going back prior to 9:30, say 9:20, and it is extracting the data from there and giving you, it might give you duplicate records, it might not give you duplicate records. So if you say, for example, you don't have any upper limit, you have only lower limit. So in that case, the first run, of course, will bring data till 9:30 because you don't have upper limit. But the second run, if you have a lower limit, it will go to 9:20 and then again extract the data from 9:20 to 9:30. That 10 minutes data is already here. If you don't have the upper limit, that 10 minutes data will be re-extracted and given it to you. So this is basically going back in time and getting redundant or duplicate data and then giving it to you so that you don't miss the data. Now, why can you miss the data? What is the concept that you can miss the data? What happens is, when a particular transaction is created or changed in S4HANA and when a save is hit, the save, say for example, happened at 9:30, 9:30 and exact second is maybe 10th second, okay, of the 31st minute, the 10th second it was saved. It is not necessary that exact same timestamp will go and sit in the database commit. So there is a commit process in between. So first it goes to something called a buffer, okay, an application buffer, application server buffer, and from the buffer it gets committed to the database. So the difference between the data save in the application server buffer and the database commit can be few seconds, okay, or few micro or milliseconds. If not few seconds, can be few micro or milliseconds. So that means that even though your application server buffer will have the timestamp of the change as 9:30, your commit, database commit might be 9:31. Okay, so that means if you are going ahead and if you don't have an upper limit or lower limit, you can miss the data because that delta will not identify it. If it doesn't go back in time, it will not identify it as a changed record. So basically, because of the difference between that application server save and the database commit, right? Your delta will miss it if you don't go back in time. And if you have a lower limit, then you are actually going back in time. So even if your application server, the actual data timestamp is 9:30, database commit has a different time, you are still going back in time and making sure that you are picking that record. Along with that record, you might have some redundant record also, some data which is already extracted. And that's fine. If you have an overwrite in your BW, that will overwrite the data. So you are good there. But the data which had a slight difference between the database commit and the application server save, you will not miss those data, those transactions or those changes, and you will get the data in BW successfully. So that's why the safety interval exists, in order for you to not miss any data and then overwrite the data which is duplicate, you can overwrite it in your BW system. Okay, so basically it's going back in time And it is also lower limit is going back in time, upper limit is going up to not current extracted time, but just before, few minutes before or few seconds before the extracted time. So that's why the upper and lower limit safety interval exist, and they exist because of the timestamp difference between the application buffer and the database commit. Okay, so now we are choosing the timestamp, which is the long format, and then we can give interval as, say, for example, 1 minute. So 60 seconds. I'll give 60 seconds are lower limit, and upper limit, I don't want upper limit. I can leave it as it is. And time zone, I will say UTC, because I know that the data in my data source is in UTC format. So if you see this format, it is saying UTC timestamp. So I know the time zone is UTC, but if you want to provide a different time zone, you can provide a different time zone. But right now I'm just providing UTC because I know the date, the timestamp is UTC. Okay, so now I'll click on Control S. Okay, by the way, here I have to choose timestamp long, right? This is not a date. No, I have to change this to this guy. So if you are choosing date, then you can choose the date field, which is last change date, which is the dat date. But if you are choosing timestamp, short or long, then you have to make sure that you choose the correct field, which is your timestamp field. And we have only one timestamp field, which is this one, last changed date time, UTC timestamp in long form. Upper limit, I'm leaving it because I want data till the exact extracted time. And then lower limit I want because I don't want to miss any records. So you can give lower limit as 60 seconds, 1 minute. So I'm just keeping it very short because otherwise we'll have to wait for a long time to see our changes or to get our changes extracted. So I'm keeping it 60 seconds. Let me save it. Okay, so it is saved, and now I will activate it. Okay, we have error, guys. What is the error? Delta field last change date time is not a selection field. What does that mean? What is this error? Can somebody explain me this error? Delta field last change date time is not a selection field. What does that mean? What can be the problem?
You have to make it as a selection of the extractor.
I have to make it as a selection of the extractor. Where do I and how do I do that?
Maybe there is an annotation for this too.
No, there is no annotation for this right now. See, we are not using annotation based delta. We are using generic delta, mean BW based delta. So no annotations will be there in the picture right now. Later on, there will be annotations, yes, but not right now, not for generic delta.
The CDS view has
In RSA6.
RSA6?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to RSA6. By the way, this data source does not exist there. Huh? We created data source in BW. Remember that.
In BW, can we go to like RSO2 and check the field?
No, let's first, yeah, sure. We will check this particular data source in RSA6.
It will not find.
There's no data source in RSA6. Why? Why I cannot find data source in RSA6, guys?
Because in ECC, S4 will only find the CDS view, not the data source.
Because this data source is not created in S4 side. This data source exists in BW side. And CDS view you will find, absolutely right. So now what do you want me to do, Shikha?
On the BW side, can we check if we can activate the field for selection, date timestamp?
So you want to go to RSO2?
Yeah.
RSO2, okay. Data source. Data source is obsolete. Display. No. I'm not finding this data source.
Is that
But the
fit
point here
acting?
is why we should do a selection field here. That's a big question.
Okay, why we are doing a selection field? Okay, to answer that, how is this delta being identified? Who's identifying the delta? S4 or BW?
BW.
BW. How will BW identify delta? By passing some selections to S4. Correct? That was the concept of pseudo delta also. That we are passing selections. Give me data between this and this time and this time. And then only that data is getting fetched from S4. So the way BW identifies delta is based on selections, right? And that's why this particular field has to be in the selection field. But this data source is complaining, saying that it is not a selection field. So we have to make it as a selection field. So first of all, did you understand why it is asking to make it as a selection field? Because this is a delta relevant field you have defined. And if you have defined a field as delta identifying or delta relevant field, that means this field is responsible for identifying your delta records. So that means BW has to store in the backend that this is the last extracted timestamp, and now when you are running the delta extraction again, it will ask S4 that okay, till here I have extracted. Now from this timestamp to this timestamp, give me the data. That's how BW is identifying the delta. And that's why it needs this field to be there as a selection field. Otherwise, BW cannot identify delta. Okay. So now you tell me, how do I make this field as selection possible?
Maybe we need to do some changes in the field tab.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, in previous world, we used to do this in RSS 6, making it selection enabled. How do we do it here is my question. First question.
By going to the fields tab there.
Correct. You have to go to fields tab and then select the particular field, last change date time. On the right side under selection properties, you will see a section called selection properties. Okay. There it will tell you whether selection is possible or not. Right now it is no selection possible. Okay. That's why it's throwing an error. So let's try to make it selection possible. Oh, I don't have any other option in the drop down. So now what? Now what do I do? So I cannot make it as selection possible, and it has to be mandatorily made selection possible. Only then delta can be identified. So now what is the next step?
Choose another field.
Choose another field. I don't have any other timestamp field.
And this
Come on guys, someone.
need to change something in CDS view.
Yes. Okay. Okay guys, can you please be on mute? I'm hearing some background feedback noise. Thank you. Okay. So point number one, we already saw that any field you declare as a delta identifying field here has to be made selection possible or selection enabled. But in the fields, there is no option of selection possible. Why? Because in generic delta based on CDS views, long timestamp format is not acceptable as a selection possible field. Only short timestamp field is possible for your selection enablement. So that means I have to convert, or I have to shorten this long format to short format. Long UTC timestamp format is acceptable by the annotation based delta, meaning the S4, when S4 identifies the delta, then it can use this field. Long format S4 is capable. Why? Because in the VBAK table, the timestamp is stored in a long format. But when BW is identifying the delta, it is not capable of passing the selection as long timestamp, but it is possible. I mean, it is enabled, or BW is enabled to use short timestamp format, meaning this particular format YYYY MMDD HH MMSS. When it goes to milliseconds and microseconds, BW generic delta is not identifying that and is not capable to do that. You have to curtail this value to short timestamp. Okay, so where do we do that? We do that in our CDS views. Now I have to make this particular field as short 14. So basically I have to take only a part of this particular value, not the entire value. So before that, first we will check what is the existing value and where is this coming from. Okay, so if you want to check this particular source field and which table it is and which field it is, you have to check the standard CDS view, because this all fields are coming from standard CDS view. So last change date time, we'll go here, we'll press F3 to navigate to that particular CDS view. That CDS view will open. Let's search this field name. What is this field name again? Last change date time. Let's see. Okay, so we have last change date time. Okay, this is also coming directly from another CDS view. So this is select from this basic. So let's go to the basic one. Okay, again press F3. So this is the basic. Let me find as. Okay, good. So this is the table VBAK and dot UPD update timestamp is the actual field in the VBAK table. So let's try to find this UPD update timestamp in VBAK. So let's quickly see what is the format here. Oh, sorry. So this is the field in VBAK UPD timestamp. Okay, so we'll open another session. Sorry. In S4, and we will check the VBAK table. Okay, and I'll just execute it and we'll see the format. So let me take the first row. UPD timestamp. There. UPD underscore TMS TNP. So look at this format. This is YYYY MM DD HH MM SS. That's it. We have to take only 14. So 2020 09 05 HH MM SS till 54. That's it. Not after the comma. This is all micro and milliseconds. So we are interested only in taking the 14 characters or the 14 digits, the first 14 digits from this, right? So what we'll do is we will, okay, let me close this, close this, come back to our original CDS view. Now what we'll do is we'll say cast function. So I'm using the cast function. The cast function is basically to change the data type to another data type. So first of all, this is a timestamp format and I have to take a substring. This is a complete string, and from that string I have to take substring. That means a part of the string. So before using substring function, I have to first convert it into a character data type, because substring function works only with character data type. So first I have to change this timestamp format to character data type. So that's why I'm using the cast. So I'll say cast this one as in ABAP there is a character data type. So I'm using ABAP.char and length is say 25. Okay, we'll keep it 25 because I think it's a long one. So I'm just keeping it 25. And then what we'll do is, okay, so cast is done. Okay, I'll remove this. Cast function is done. I have done cast of this particular as ABAP.char and this. Then what I will do is, so now I have changed this to character format. Now I can use a substring function. That substring function will take the part. What is the part we have to take from this string? The first 14 digits we have to take. So we'll start with 0. and then we'll go to 14. So till 14, I have to take the values, not beyond that. So my substring is done, my casting is done, and my substring is done. Now I have to convert it back to decimal. See, the original format is decimal. If you see this, let me go back to VBAK definition. The format is decimal. In fact, in the data source itself, we can see. See, the format is decimal. So I don't want to convert the data type completely. I want to keep the data type same, but then now I only need 14 here. So I am not changing the final data type. So final data type, we have to keep the same, decimal. So what we'll do is, we will again do a cast. And before changing it to decimal, first you have to change it to numeric, and then you can change it to decimal, because a numeric one you can change it to decimal. But right now it is character. So what I'll say is as abap dot numc now. Numc means my numeric. So now I'll say I only need 14. Okay. So this cast is done. Then final cast I will do, and I will say as abap dot decimal. It will ask for length and decimal, so I'll keep it 14. I'm not going to change that, and I don't want any decimals, just 0 decimal, and this is also done. So my final cast is done, and I'll just give an alias name, because whenever you use cast function, then finally you have to give an alias name. So I'll just say last changed at. Okay. So let me see if the syntax is correct. Let me save this and let me activate it. Okay, there is an error. What is the error? Let's see. When I do a function value substring value of 2 parameter must be positive integer value. DDL source contain positive integer value of 2. Value of 2 means the second parameter value. It's saying that in the substring, the second parameter value. What is the second parameter value?
The substring keyword did not turn purple. Why?
SUBSTR. Function is substring. SUBSTR.
No, I think it is substring only.
SUBSTR. No.
No, it is substring only. SUBSTR might also be there, but SUBSTR ing I think it is in ABAP it is substring. Yeah, I know substring is not converted to purple, but substring is a function. It is there. This second digit, I think it starts with 1, not 0. Some functions they start with 0, but I think substring starts with 1. Let me activate this. So it's doing a syntax. I think it's activated successfully, if I'm not wrong. No, maybe it's activating, still activating. Because if you see a star here, see this star and a gray diamond or a gray circle will tell that this is not activated. I don't know why it is doing a syntax check.
Do we need a last brackets for cast after last change?
No, I think because if there was a bracket error or something, it will highlight here saying that syntax error. But right now it's not highlighting, so I'm assuming this is correct. Let me activate it again, just a second. Control S, Control F2 to see any syntax check. Okay, let it activate. It's activating now. Yeah, activated successfully. Okay, so this is working fine. How do you check that, whether it's working fine or not? Okay, don't worry if substring did not convert it to purple, that's fine. Substring is still a function is there. Just like ABAP num-c is also there, right? So these are all different functions and cursors which you will use for your expression. So this is a complex, see, this is a complex expression. I'm using multiple casts and then I'm using a substring inside that. So basically this is another advantage of CDS views. In the normal DB views, you cannot do like that. It's not so simple, but in CDS view syntax, complex expressions are easily possible. Now, the way you have to check whether this is working actually or not in S4 is same thing. You go to the data definition or you go to the actual CDS entity, say open with data preview and check the value of last changed at YYYY MM DD HH MM SS. Yes. So this is 14 digits, 14 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So what I did was, let's quickly look back what we did. Basically what I did was I extracted the first 14 characters, and the way I have to extract is because it's a decimal, I cannot just directly use the string functions. So that's why first thing I did was I converted the decimal to string, which is the first cast we did, right? Then I took a substring that is in the first 14 digits from there. And once it is there, it is a string now, because after using substring, the value which will be returned will be a string. Now I have to convert it back to decimal, but before that I have to convert it back to numeric, and then it will allow me to convert a numeric to decimal. So then I converted the string to numeric, and then from numeric to decimal. And then I gave a alias name, which is last changed at, and of course the final comma, and then other fields will remain the same. So this is how I extracted the first 14 digits from that long UTC timestamp. And now we have to do activation is successful. Now we have to come back to the data source. So right now data source is showing December, not December, decimal 21. Okay, so we'll close this. Okay, because we okay, you know what, let me first see if the data source is inactive or active. Let me go back here 1 second. So first of all, I will refresh this data flow because I made some changes. So I'll just refresh the data flow, and then I'll go back to data source to check whether that delta relevant field and all those things. Yeah, we have. So what I'll do is, it didn't activate successfully, remember? So what I will change right now, just for the time being, I will change it to date. I'll change it to the date field and just activate it, just so that it successfully activates, because previously it was error. So I didn't want to keep my data source in erroneous state. So I'm just activating it with the date field. And then what we'll do is we will re-replicate the data source. So right now it activates successfully, no problem, which is fine. Now I will re-replicate my data source. And how I do that? By RSDS. You can right click and re-replicate also, but I don't prefer that. That sometimes has not worked for me, gives error or does not replicate properly. So that I always use for a single data source, I use RSDS. So you can use this. And what is our data source name? Let me copy the name. This is a data source name. So we'll copy the data source name, put it here, and the source system is what? Source system is the ODP CDS of type S4 CDS views. So this is our source system. We'll go to menu, data source, and replicate. Okay. So let it wait. It will take a few seconds for the replication, but this does a proper replication. I mean, sometimes the right click on the direct data source also works. I'm not saying it is always a problem, but sometimes I have seen it to be inconsistent. So I always use RSDS. So it says data source replicated. Good. So now we will refresh it once. Okay. So we'll just say refresh. And now I will go back to my flow, data flow. I'll press F5 so that it takes the latest one, and you will see that the transformation got inactive and the DTP got inactive because we made some changes to the data source. So the connected objects will become inactive, which is a default behavior. But first we will see whether the data source has the proper field now or not. Yes, the decimal 21 now is changed to decimal 14 for the last change that. So now we'll try to see if selection, yeah, automatically now it is saying selection is possible. So selection is possible now. Previously we had this, no selection possible, and we could not change it. But now after putting it to a short timestamp format, it will allow you, and also selection possible. And you will say what you can do, equal to only permitted, between permitted, equal to between permitted, contains pattern also permitted. So you can choose anything, which is fine. Equal to between was by default it was selected, so I will keep it as it is. So you can keep it, and it is decimal 14, scale is 0, the decimal place is 0. Now we'll go to extraction tab, and we will change now from date, we will change to timestamp short, not long anymore. And then we will choose last changed at lower limit is 60 seconds, which is 1 minute, which is fine. And everything else is the same. This is the ODP. So now let me try to save it and activate it. Okay. So let's see if it throws an error or not. Yeah. So it is fine activated. It's just saying pack number should have an odd number of digits, which is the last thing, which is just a warning. You can ignore it. That's fine. Now it is ready for generic delta. So it now can identify generic delta. So what we'll do is we will do a fresh start. I want to show you a fresh start. So what we'll do is, first let me activate the transformation. So we'll say display transformation. Okay. And we will do a control F3 to activate it, because after the data source was changed, the transformation and DTP became inactive, but no change required here. So we'll just activate this. So this has activated. Now you display the DTP and then activate it here. So see, all navigations and everything you can do from the DFM, data flow modeler. You don't have to navigate anywhere else. So our DTP is also activated. So it will show the symbol is gone. So now I will just quickly activate our data flow as well, so that it has the latest changes updated. Okay. So we have the delta now. So we loaded the full, and now we will load the delta. So because I want to show you the delta initialization and the delta, so we'll do a fresh start. So what we'll do is we will this particular DSO will delete the data, and the above DSO also we will delete the data. So how you delete the data? You can go to the manage of the ADSO. It will take you to the cockpit as usual. And from the cockpit, we are going to delete the data. So I will just log into cockpit. Okay, there's the same user ID, which you will use for your BW. So you log into cockpit, and then you will see the manage data store is there. We'll delete the data from here. First, let's delete data from the top ADSO, and then we will delete from the staging ADSO. So we'll go to this ADSO, which is a standard ADSO, and same thing, manage. So we have the request here. Okay. So what we'll do is we will say further actions. Sorry, is there a question?
Can you ask the users to mute their...
Yeah, guys, can you please be on mute? I'm still seeing some background noise. Yeah, I think it's fine now. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So it's fine now. So we have the manage, which is there in the cockpit. Now what we'll do in from further actions, we have display, delete and upload. We'll choose the delete data. Again, within delete, it will give you three options: selective, everything, request based. Request based you can only do when there is a change log. Then you will say delete all, because we want to clean the ADSO. So we'll delete data, all will delete it. This cannot be undone. Do you want to wish to continue? Yes, let's do that. Successfully deleted from all the tables. So your active data table is cleaned. Your inbound table, if it had data, it is also cleaned. Now the same thing we'll do from here. We'll delete the data. delete data from all tables, delete it. Okay, data successfully deleted from all tables. So let's quickly do a check in the backend. So how you check the data from the table? Go to properties, make sure this is open in the editor, go to DDIC, we'll go to activated table, this should be blank. Yeah, no rows, which is good. Okay, then my change log inbound table should also be blank. Yeah, and the change log should also be blank. Okay, so we have zero data in my top layer ADSO, and then in my staging ADSO, we also will check quickly. This is the one, and we'll go to DDIC and we'll display data. Okay, clean. And then we have the inbound. I'm not interested right now. So we'll keep the active data table open so that we'll check the data, and we'll, yeah, that's it. So we only have active data and inbound table. So we'll keep the active data table open here. And now we will start the DTP. So if you go back to your data flow, okay, let me activate it again. Okay, so now the first layer, the first level DTP, which is this guy here. Okay, now we'll display the DTP, and now you will see that the drop down is enabled. Previously, this DTP was only full and you could not choose delta. It was disabled. So the reason it was disabled is because the data source itself did not support delta, but now the data source supports the generic delta, and this generic delta will not use ODQs. Remember that. So we have to keep a close eye on the ODQ mon also. So let's open ODQ mon in a separate session. So we'll go to S4 and we will open the ODQ mon. Okay, and in the ODQ mon, we will see that what are the subscriptions there, delta plus init. So we will see that we don't have any entry for the CDS view. Okay, so we don't have any entry for our header CDS view. So which is this one. So ZI sales header BT2, we don't have any data or any entry for this. The ZV sales header BT2, so there is no entry for this. So that means right now ODQ mon is not being used, but we will trigger delta and then we will see if it is being used or not. So we'll trigger the DTP. This is now, let's change it to delta. Okay, and we will say Control S to make sure there are no problems in converting this to delta. Yeah, I think it is fine. And now Control F3 to activate it. Okay, so DTP is consistent and it is being activated. So now we have this KXD, DTP KXD. It is changed from full to delta. Now let's run it. So you will say execute in background, execute and open monitor. So we have a lower safety level lower safety interval. We don't have any upper safety interval. But it brought all the records. Okay, 60 records it brought. So total 60 records. And if you see this header, this is a delta initialization. Okay, and what is the lower limit of the last change that? Lower limit of the last change that is 0. That means start of the time. So that means this is not correct, right? I gave the lower safety interval limit of 1 minute, which is 60 seconds in the data source. If you see, then why it is saying 0 here? Why the lower safety limit interval was not taken into consideration?
Because it is the fast initialization, delta
Exactly,
initialization.
because it is the first time. And remember what I told you, when you run for the first time, the lower limit will not be taken into consideration. Okay, only the upper limit will be taken into consideration, and we don't have any upper limit. That means what will be my upper limit? The time when I triggered this DTP, which is 1332, right? It was 932. 932 means 1332. Why 1332? Because it is UTC timestamp. I am in EST time zone, 932. So EST plus your 4 hours is your UTC right now. So 9 plus 4 is 13. So 13, 32, it was the upper safety interval. Okay, so everything was loaded, 60 records was loaded, and then now you go to manage request. So where will you see data? Let's see if the active table has data or not. Refresh. Oh, why I don't have data here, guys? Active table. My request was successful, but I don't see data in active table. Why?
It's an activation required.
It will be in inbound table, right?
It has inbound table, yeah.
Yes. So it has inbound table, but in the staging layer, we have two tables. You can also have just one table, but right now we have two tables. Why we have two tables? Because the property of this ADSO is compress. Compress will have two tables, inbound and active. So that means you have to activate the data first. Another question. Will this request, can I change the data like in PSA? Should it allow
Yes,
me
you
to
can.
change the data?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
It's
It's
the
staging layer,
same
but
like
it's
a
still
PSA.
allowing me. Why?
If it is having more than one table, it should allow it.
It should allow. The simple principle, if it is more than one table in the staging layer, it will allow. Okay. So that means we have the change request data activated here. So if you want to change the data here, it will allow you. So let's activate the data. What does it say? Load request must be propagated first with this type of ADSO. Why? Because we have a delta which is there between the first staging layer and the next one, and if you activate it, the delta cannot be identified. The reason delta cannot be identified is because we don't have change log in the first layer. So now what we have to do is we have to run the next DTP. So where is the next DTP? There.
Devanshu, before that, I just want to ask you, ODQ mon will be, subscription will be created now?
Oh yeah, we have to check that, right? Exactly. Good point. Good point. Okay, so let's go back to ODQ1. Okay, how many say subscription will be created?
It should have.
It should have. Others, like say for example, Shikha, what do you say?
I think so as well. It should be because
should
we
create it.
ran the init.
Okay. Soresh, what do you think? Do you see the subscription? Do you see the queue?
Yes, it should be created.
It should be created.
It is not there.
So it's not there. It is not created. Why? Okay, let's go back to what I explained. With CDS views, how many deltas are possible? How many types of delta are possible? I told you. One is generic delta. The other one is annotation based delta. What did I tell you? Which one will use ODQs?
Second one.
Are we doing second one or first one right now?
First one.
We are dealing with generic delta which will not use ODQs. Please remember that. ODP is used for source system type and connectivity. ODQ is not used. Don't think that whenever there will be a CDS view based or ODP enabled data source, it will always use ODQs. These are two separate things. ODP has ODQ as a feature, but not everything which uses ODP will automatically use ODQ. That is not true. Okay. So this particular CDS view based data source has generic delta, not your annotation based delta. The moment I will use annotation based delta, ODQs will be used. Why? Because S4 is identifying the delta, not your BW in the own annotation based. But here it is generic delta. Who's identifying the delta in this case? BW is identifying the delta, not your S4. That means ODQ will not be used in this case. That means BW locally is storing those timestamp somewhere in the back end in some tables, and it's identifying the last one and the next one, and it is passing that selection in the DTP selection to S4 and getting the data from CDS view. So ODQs will not be used. Clear? So that's why you will not see any entry in ODQ for this particular CDS view based data source.
Devadish, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is it right to say that SAP standard data sources based on ODP always uses ODQ, but based on CDS views, we will have an option whether to go with the ODQ or not?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
If your SAP data sources will have Delta enabled, again, not all SAP data sources are Delta enabled. Remember that. Okay. If your SAP data source, standard data source is Delta enabled, you have to first check whether it is ODP enabled or not. First thing. How will you check that? RUS ATTR. Table should have entry. Only when these two criteria is satisfied, the data source is Delta enabled and it is ODP enabled also, your ODQs will be used. If your data source is full, not Delta enabled, but ODP enabled, then you will see an entry in ODQ, but subscription will not be created for that full. We already saw that. And for the CDS view based data sources, you have two options. Either you can choose to be a generic delta, or you choose to be a annotation based delta, which will use ODQ. There are some limitations of generic delta, like we saw that deletions it cannot identify, right? One of the major disadvantages is that it is without deletions. If you delete some sales document in the source, it will not be able to identify that. Your annotation based delta, which is ODQ, can identify deletions also. So that's the limitation between generic delta and your annotation based delta. And also the agent which identifies the delta changes. In this case, BW is identifying delta. In the other case, S4 CDS view itself is capable of identifying the delta. Okay, so we'll run this DTP also. So we'll quickly do that. Excuse me. Okay, 60 records came. Now here we'll go to manage request. See, this is also allowing me to change the request data. Why is it allowing me? Because this also has two tables and this is not a data mart ADSO. Only the exception is data mart ADSO, which has two tables, but it will not allow you to modify the data, because data mart DSO is basically a cube and you should not be allowed to modify data in cube, because that is the layer which is usually the last layer. So, but here it's a standard ADSO, it has two tables, it will allow you to change the data. Right now, I'm just interested in activating the data, so I'll just activate the request. So the request is successfully activated. Let's check whether the active table of the second ADSO is showing us the data or not. So I'll go to this, I'll open the second ADSO. Okay, we'll go to properties, go to DDIC, and active data table should show me 60 records. So there are 60 rows here. Okay, and now what we'll do is we'll go back and we will this is the second request, this is the first one. Okay, this is a manage, you can close the manage, and now I will just refresh this and then we'll activate the data in the first staging layer as well. Okay, so we'll activate it, activate 60 records. Now it should not throw me any error, it should successfully activate because I've already propagated this request to the further delta enabled target. So it is successful. Now we'll go back to the table for the staging layer. I think this is staging layer, right? S, yeah. So now we'll refresh and we'll see 60 rows here as well. So the first delta initialization is successful. No entry in ODQ, MON. That means operational delta queues are not used. This is generic delta. Okay. So now what I will do is, I'll make a change. let's make a change and see if this is identified or not. So in S4, you can, I'll open another session. We'll keep this session open, the ODQ mon, just to, cross check again when the delta is triggered. So I'll bring it here. All S4 sessions we'll do for the first ones. Now I'll go to VA02, same thing. We'll change 49, our favorite order. And now we will go inside 49 and we will change same thing, the order reason. So if you check here, the order reason is right now poor quality. We will change it to something called excellent price. Okay. By the way, let me check the value in the target. What is the value currently? ZS, ZI, right? So we'll filter, and the filter we'll put it as 49. We'll see what is the value of the order reason. Order reason is 101. 101 means that poor quality. And we changed it to what? We changed it to excellent price. So let's save it. Okay, so it says saved. So now we will check the data first in S4 side. So how we'll check the data in S4 side? Same thing, you go to the core data services, the CDS view. Where is that? This one. So right click on this. I'll just minimize this. Right click and say open with data preview. We'll see 49. So we'll quickly filter. We'll see for 49 and it changed to what? 006. So document reason from 101, it changed to 006. So now we'll quickly run the DTP. Okay. Which DTP we have to run? The first layer DTP. Let me quickly go there and open the DTP, this one, display DTP, and execute in background. Okay, so it's starting now. Okay, this is fine. Okay, so how many records this DTP will bring, guys? One record it brought. One. Okay. So I triggered it at 9:46, right? So let's see. So it brought one record. Go to manage request. By the way, this is a delta. So we'll see that also. This is not delta in it. So we'll see this is delta and it brought one record. Why it brought one record? Why not that after image and before image? Why not two records? Shouldn't it bring two records like we saw in our 2LIS11 VHDR?
This is after image only.
Change log is not enabled.
No, please remember CDS view is only after image capable. CDS view data sources will not send you before and after, just like your 2LIS11 VHDR. CDS view based data sources will only send after images, the final value. Okay. So you see here, we have 1346. The lower limit is 1331 and the upper limit is 1346. So lower limit we put it to 1 minute, right? So that means it went to previous one and the previous timestamp it took, which was I think 1330, which was the last one, and it subtracted one, I think 1332, probably it will be 1332, and it subtracted 1 minute, which is 1331, and it brought my data, and the updated 1346 because it's the time of delta extraction. There was no upper limit, so it did not restrict data there, but lower limit it did. So 1331. So I want to check what is the value for the previous one. This is a load request. Okay, so let me do this. Let me go to the inbound table. First, we'll check what is the data which came. It should be 006. Okay. So it should be 006. Yeah. So SD document reason is now 006. That means only one value. There is no previous one which says 101 and the new one 006. Only after remains 006. Now we'll go to the ADSO manage for a quick minute, and I want to check this. See here, 8:42 was the time of the delta initialization trigger. 8:42 means what? Your 1342. So 1342 was the time when it and this is CST, by the way, guys. Okay, if it is EST, that means it is 9:42. My time is EST. This is showing in CST. That's why it subtracted 1 more hour. So it is 1342 was the time of the initialization trigger, and my lower limit was 1 minute. So that's why the lower limit of this particular request was let me see. Go to DB monitor. Lower limit for this was 1331. That's the functionality of safety intervals. It will take the delta extraction time and it will subtract the number of minutes or number of seconds you have defined in the safety interval.
Devanshu, it should be 1341, right? Why it is 31? Because
10 minutes lower limit, right?
No, I didn't give 10 minutes.
No,
it was 1 minute.
it's 1 minute. It's 1 minute
Let's
only.
see. Yeah, it is 60 seconds, which is 1 minute. Okay, lower limit. Was it 42, the previous one? Let me check. Yeah, it is 8:41. Hold on. Okay, so this guy was, hold on guys, 1 second, let me close this, let me go to the manage of ADSO.
Was it the upper limit of the delta initialization which was considered?
See, delta initialization was 8:42. Let me see the ranges which was considered. Yeah, this is 8. No, this is activation request. That's why. This is the activation request, not the actual load request.
Load request is 832 only.
Yeah, load request is 832. See, activation request was a separate request and load request is a separate request. Load request means the data which brought from the source to the inbound table. Activation is which took the data from inbound to your active table. So load request is 832, not 42. Okay. So it subtracted 1 minute, which is 831, which is 1331, which was the lower limit of the delta request. Okay. So that's what happened. Now let me go back. So if you want to check all the requests of an ADSO, say for example, right from the cockpit. So you go to home, you go to data management, and in data management you will see DSO manage request. So you click there. You will have to filter out your ADSO, of course. It will show you the data from all the ADSOs. So expand the header and let's just type Z. What was the DSO name? ZS underscore HD HDR2. I think that's the name. ZI ZS SD HDR2. ZS SD HDR2. This one. So this has 60 and this has 1. Okay, so this is active data, this is inbound table. Why? Because we have not activated the request yet. That's why it is showing in an inbound table. So in the inbound table, if you go, we'll just quickly activate. Should I be able to activate this or not?
No.
Should I get an error or should I be able to successfully activate this?
You get error.
Why get error?
Because we need to pass the delta on.
Correct. Exactly. So let's make sure, yes. So I get an error. So that means I have to do that DTP. So I go back. Where is my DTP? Is this a DTP? No, this is not DTP. So we'll open the DTP again. So display DTP. This is from the staging to the next layer. So we'll execute this, execute. Okay, brought one record again. And what it read the request ID was the selection here. Okay. What is this request ID? Where is this coming from? From the inbound table. So inbound table has the request ID, the record number, the packet ID. So it is reading the request ID which recently got loaded. So now we'll quickly go to manage request and activate this. Okay, activate. We'll activate this. Okay, activate it, and now we'll check the data in our final this one. So it changed to 006. This is the active table of my integrated data warehousing layers, the standard ADSO. Now, if you want to check the change log, let's quickly check the change log as well for this ADSO. So we'll go to properties, we'll go to the change log. Okay, and we will quickly filter the sales document number. Let's see. Okay, so we have new and we have after image. So this is before image and after image. So it was 00, yeah, 101, 101, 006. So change log will have the after and before image automatically created, but your active data table will have only the latest one, which is overwritten, which is 006. So this is the generic delta, how it works. Now, if I would have made a change, see, let's do this. I'll show you one more thing. So in 49, I will do a change. So what I will do is, I will change it to from excellent price, fast delivery. And I'll quickly save.
Dibanshu, sorry to interrupt you. This is Devi. And could you please change the quantity or any fact?
No, that will be identified in item. We don't have quantity or fact in header.
Yeah,
right?
sorry, correct. Yeah, correct. And I have one more question. As you said, this CDS views are the AIE, I mean, after image. And usually we use the data mart DSOs, means like a cube characteristic DSOs. Is it not the same case here for the line item?
No, after images, you cannot use cube. First layer, you should never use cube as your first layer for the after image. Because in cube is not override. Data mart ADSOs, you cannot make override, right? Data mart ADSO will always be additive, summation. So that means, say for example, your value initially was 100, now it changed to 120. So in your data mart ADSO, it will be 220. So you should not do that. First layer always should be an override ADSO, which in our case is the standard ADSO, which overrode. And second layer, you can keep it as your data mart ADSO.
Yeah, I think I got confused with the AIE and ADD. Sorry. Now I got, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So see, again, the change was immediately identified. So this is the way how BW is identifying the delta based on the selection condition. So it is passing as part of the selection condition, the timestamp field. And this is the reason you need the timestamp field to be selection enabled. And unfortunately, the long timestamp is not supported for the generic delta, CDS view based generic delta. Only short timestamp is supported. Maybe in future, SAP will support it, but right now it's not there. All right, so right now it's 9:58. Let's take a quick 10 minutes break. We'll come back at 10:10.
Dipanshu, one question before taking a break. So when is the staging DSO, the request is getting activated?
Sorry, come again?
The staging request is there.
Yes.
Loaded one change, staging DSO.
Yes.
The request is getting activated, means the data is getting loaded from inbound to
active.
Active. Yeah.
Correct.
When is it happening? Are we doing it?
Yeah, we are doing it. So see, this is the new request which came in, right? One record. So I'm going to manage request and I have to activate it. Now I cannot activate at my staging layer because first I have to move it to my next ADSO. Then only I can activate it. So first I have to run the next DTP, which is from staging to integrated data warehousing layer. So I'll execute that. And then you can activate both. First you activate the integrated data warehousing layer ADSO, and then you activate the staging ADSO. So you have to do that
This
manually.
is little tricky actually. Why
No,
we
no,
have to
put it in process chain. See, right now I'm doing everything manually, right? That's why it is tricky for you. But
maybe I have
once,
to unlearn the past criteria wherein we used to load and then activate and then load.
yeah, you have to unlearn. Why you have to unlearn? Because right now change log is not there. Previous world, change log was by default there. You cannot say that I don't want to have change log, right? Now in the staging layer, you will not have change log, and in the standard ADSO also you can choose whether you want to have change log or not. Only when you don't have change log, then you have to make sure that the request is propagated first to the top layer, and then only you can activate it. Okay, it's not nothing to unlearn, but just to add in your repertoire of how ADSOs work.
This activation
staging.
Go ahead.
This activation part only comes when you choose that compress option, right? Or else this is not required, correct?
In the staging layer.
In the staging layer, right?
No. It also comes when you select the third option, reporting enabled.
Oh.
Yeah. See, in the inbound layer, don't worry. Again, ADSOs we will discuss in detail. Don't worry, guys. Okay. But for now, just remember that in the staging layer ADSO, where is my staging layer ADSO? This one. So in the staging layer, I have three options, right? Inbound, compress, reporting. For compress and reporting, there will be two tables. That means activation is required.
Right.
In inbound queue, activation is not required.
Correct. Okay.
Okay.
So do we have that same funda of F table and E table down here or no?
No, there is no F and E table. There is inbound table will act as an F table, and your active data table will act as your E table in this ADSO.
Data mart, okay.
Yes, not in the staging or standard ADSO.
Okay.
That E and F table functionality is only there for this data mart ADSO, which is your cube, info cube, basically.
Right.
Okay. So now we've activated it. So the request, now I can just refresh it and activate my staging layer ADSO request also. Now, what if I don't activate the request in my inbound table, this one? Okay.
My next question was that.
What if I don't activate? Will it be a problem for me if I don't activate?
Next delta won't come to inbound.
No.
It won't be used for reporting, I guess.
Exactly. This ADSO is not used for reporting, so you can keep things unactivated or inactivated. No problem. You can have requests sitting in inbound table, and the further target will keep taking the data request ID by request ID. Okay. So no problem. Even if you don't activate the data, it is absolutely fine. What will be the problem you will have if you don't activate? Anyone? Any disadvantages if I don't activate?
Request gets piled up, it's not compressed.
Correct. Your data storage, your memory will be more used than if you activate it, because you are not aggregating it. You are just, if you keep it only in inbound table, you are saying that I don't want to aggregate it, just keep the data as it is. That means more memory will be used. If you activate it, data is cleaned from the inbound table and it is activated and aggregated at the same time. When you activate, it aggregates, right? Based on the override functionality or summation functionality, whatever you have defined, but it will aggregate your data and store it in the active table. So your memory usage will be less. And the main reason for compressed data feature is to save memory. If you want to save memory in your staging layer, you will go for compressed data, and that will save your memory, meaning inbound table will be cleaned. So that's the main reason.
Like after compressing the data won't work, but can we do a drop and reload of the next layer DSO?
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely.
Okay, but it doesn't not support the delta, right? After
no. See, when you check compress, your delta has to be run first before you activate.
Right.
Yeah, after activation, you cannot run the delta.
But we can run a full load, right? I mean, to the next layer.
Yeah, absolutely. You can run a full load. You can rebuild your upper layer ADSO. That's possible. Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
The first level inbound queue data that you're using, can that be cleared up every 30 days? The first level DSO?
You mean this one? If I just choose this?
In the data flow monitor, there is a first level DSO for you, right? So can that be cleared out every 30 days?
You're talking about.
She's talking about staging DSO.
Staging
Yes.
DSO. Yeah, I'm just going to the flow so that I can. So this one you're talking about, right? The staging ADSO.
That's the first one. Yes.
Yeah. So in the staging ADSO, if you have inbound queue only, right, then you can clean up. Yeah, you can definitely clean up as long as you make sure that it is propagated up to the final target. And if you don't want to use this for rebuilding your further target, then you can clean up. But in future, say for example, a problem comes and the client says that 2015 data is not matching, please reload 2015 again. Then you will not be able to reload from this staging ADSO. You will have to go to the source to load the data. So that's why staging ADSOs are not recommended to be cleaned. And that's why the flow of LSA++ is not directly from staging to your integrated data warehousing layer. There is a parallel flow. Please remember that. The parallel flow is the daily operational flow. The flow from the staging ADSO to your integrated data warehousing layer ADSO is only used for exception problematic scenarios where you have to rebuild the data. That's why it is also called corporate memory ADSO. Staging ADSO is also called corporate memory. So please don't delete from here. Keep as it is and make a parallel flow instead. That's what LSA++ suggests. But technically you can do this, what I am doing, from data source to first layer, from first layer to second layer. But I would rather not delete it here, because if I have to rebuild, I have to go to the source. I don't want to do that. I can easily come here and I should be able to rebuild all my data if required.
But when there is a change in the source, like you're adding new fields and the whole data needs to be brought in, then at that stage, when you're doing a delta init or when you're doing first time full load, then that first level needs to be cleared out, isn't it?
If you want historical records for those new fields, yes, correct. Then you have to do a reinit. But if you don't want historical records, if client says going forward, give me the data for these fields, I don't want history for this, then you don't need to.
Okay, I think you will come. You'll be telling this, but what's the advantage of using a BW delta with respect to a SAP delta for these kind of generic CDS views? Like you can do both. That's what you mentioned, right? Will you be telling that in the future?
No, I mean, see, right now only you can see that you can have generic delta if you don't want to use annotations. If you are because based on your versions, right? Version of your ABAP layer, 730, 740, annotations are becoming available or not available. Certain annotations will not be available in the prior versions of your ABAP layer. So if you are on 730, SP2, SP3, that is, these are older releases, you might have CDS views there, but you will not have all the annotations which are necessary for your delta, for your deletions, for your safety intervals, and so on and so forth. As you go more mature in the ABAP NetWeaver server version, more annotations you can use. So if you are on prior versions, you can use the generic delta. That's why SAP gave this option. But now, if you are already on 740 SP5 or above, then you should not use generic delta. You should always go for annotation based delta which will use ODQs. But this was given initially when not all those annotations were there. So that's the difference. Okay guys, so let's take a quick break. It's 10:10. Let's stop all the questions for now because I have to cover a lot of content. So we will cover all the questions in post session Q&A. We'll come back at 10. Let's take maybe 15. At 10:15 we'll come back. Okay, and we'll continue with our annotation based delta extraction. Okay, thank you. Okay, can you guys hear me? Just checking.
Yeah, Devanshu.
All right. So now we looked at the generic delta based on CDS views, which we can have the override functionality, delta functionality without deletions. It cannot identify the deletion. As a assignment for you, what you'll have to do is copy a particular sales order and then delete that sales order. No, first of all, copy the sales order and extract it as part of this delta mechanism. So it will identify that as a new sales document, and then you delete it in the source, which is S4, and then you run the delta and see if it is identifying the deletions or not. It will not identify, but do that as an assignment. Okay, now the second part is annotation based delta, which is your ODQ. It will start using ODQ. By the way, let's check whether ODQ is used so far or not. So here itself we'll do ODQ mon. Just to make sure we did a lot of delta, which is one initialization and two deltas. So none of that created the ABAP CDS. So now the provider, if you want to see the filter the provider, if you filter based on ABAP core data services, you should see that entry. If it was using ODQs, you would have seen an entry here, but we don't have any entry here, meaning that this generic delta is not using the ODQs. It is definitely using the ODP technology, but it is not using the ODQs. Now what we'll do is we'll create another CDS view. This time it will be for item data, okay, which is your quantity data. So there we will use the annotations which will enable the ODQ, and it will also enable the deltas. So what you can do is you can just say new data definition. Now this time we'll give it name ZI underscore sales item sales item BT2. Okay, ZI sales item BT2. Yeah. So we'll give it sales item as the description. Click on next. Okay, now previously in our header, I used standard CDS view. I'm not going to use standard CDS view anymore. So I'm going to use define view with join, simple join. Okay. Previously we chose define view, and now I'm going to show you how to use define view with join. So this is the template where you have the SQL view name, mandatory annotation, then you have the compiler, compare, filter, preserve key authorization checks, and the description. Then you have define view name as select from the data source name, left outer join. So by default it is giving left outer, but you can change it if you want, and then the join condition. Now I chose this particular template because I wanted to show you the join. Say for example, if I want to change the template to the normal view, is there a possibility? Can I change the template now after choosing the template? Is it possible, guys, or not? Sorry, possible?
Yeah, I think it is possible.
How? Tell me.
I'm just thinking.
Okay, so the view which will enable you to change the templates, even if you have chosen one, and if you decide in the middle that no, I want to go back to another template, then what you have to do is you have to go to window, you have to say show view other, and then just type template. So when you select templates, so it will automatically give you the templates. So if you see here, these are all the templates which are there. define hierarchy, define view with join. Right now it is define view, right? So if I want to go back to define view, it will automatically give me that template, and then you can get rid of the other one. So this one, right? So from here I have, so you can get rid of this, and your only define view template is there. Okay, you can remove this also. So your define view template will come. So automatically you can choose. And if you want to go back and forth, of course, the template view will give you. So right now we'll remove all this and we will select define view with join. So again, the define view with join came back. So now what we'll do is we'll quickly create define view. The name is find GI sales item BD2 as select from. What I will say is now we will directly use the tables. So for the item data, it always comes with VBAP. So the main table is VBAP. Let's give it an alias name as P. And then I will say left outer join or inner join. You can say anything, but let's keep it left outer join. And then we will go with VBAK as K. Okay. I'll give this as P and K. And then on the name of the data source, which is P dot, what is common between them?
VBELN.
VBELN, the sales document number. So I'll just say P dot VBELN equals to my K dot VB, or you can also press Control space, guys. Okay. So you can say K dot Control space. It will give you all the fields, and just type VBELN field. So I know Shakti, for you control space is not working, so we'll look at that later on, but control space will also give you the field list. On P.VBLN equals to K.VBLN. Again, if I want another table, say left outer join, okay, time, because we have to get fiscal year, fiscal period, those. So we'll say this as T, okay. Actually, to make it a little bit better. So that we know clearly which tables we are using. Okay, T001 as T on. What is the common field? I think we'll do. Let me see T001 what it has. Bookers. So key field is client and company code. Bookers is company code. So we'll use that as my K. I think VBAK has bookers, if I'm not wrong. Let me see. Yeah, bookers underscore VF. So we will say K dot on K dot bookers underscore bookers. Equals to my, this is not K, sorry, this is T. So K dot bookers will be bookers underscore F. Yeah. So K dot bookers is equal to my T dot bookers, company code. Okay. So I'm using two tables here for the join. The main table is of course VBAP, but apart from that, I'm using two tables for the join, VBAK for the header and T001 for the time related fields. So now what I will do is, I can insert all elements So we can do that as, but it has a lot of fields. Okay, let me do that. Oh no, this has a lot of fields. So let me type, because I know the field names, so I can type it. So what we'll say is key field, first of all, right? P dot VBELN, that one. Then again, we have another key, which is Posner, which is the item number. We have Posner. And then the non-key fields, we can have K dot, the document type, K dot AUART, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, K dot AUART. 1 second. Okay. Then we have K dot bookers. I'll just quickly type that. K dot A that. I think change that. Change that. Yeah. K dot VB TYP. K dot AUDAT. So where I'm getting these field names from, if you remember in our scenario, okay, I'll tell you how I'm getting the field name. In the scenario, in the material, if you go, you have the scenario, customer scenario, right? This one. Now here you have the header and item data source fields. So look at those fields, and those fields you'll have to include in your, so this is for the item, right? VBLN, POSA, AURT, bookers, AUDAT, AUDAT, all these things I'm basically choosing here. But you want to, if you want to test it out, you can just test it out with a subset of fields. But I would recommend go for all these fields so that we have the exact scenario implemented in our data source. So we'll quickly do that. K.AUDAT. Then what do we have? That VB type VDATU. VDATU. Then we have AUGRU, which is the reason, right? That we have. Then we have VKORG. This is the company distribution channel and all. Then we have VTWEG. Okay, then we have SPART. Okay, which is the division. Then we have PERIV. Okay, PERIV will not come from, because the posting period is not there. So we have to do T dot PERIV. I think this table has. Yes, so this is the fiscal year variant, not posting period, sorry. Fiscal year variant. And then we have Kunar in the K. Okay. Let's see, what do we have else? Okay, so we have the Cockers, which is the company controlling area. Okay. Matner, this is coming from the item. Matner. Then we have the MATKL. Okay. And then we have the plant, which is WERKS plant. Now we have all the dimensions. So dimensions we have added. Now we will add key fields. Okay. So we will say P dot VRKME. VRKME is basically your sales unit. This is the unit. So there is a field level annotation to qualify the unit. So what is that field level annotation? We'll say @semantics. All the field level annotations where you are designating unit or currency, they will start with semantics, @semantics dot unit of measure true. Okay, so that means this particular field annotation is designating this VRKME as a sales unit. Okay, you can also give it an alias name like this as my sales unit. If you want to give the alias name, you can give, in fact, you should give the alias name for all of them to make it meaningful, but right now it's going to take time, so I'm not doing that. So So I've designated that, and I will also say P dot means. What is means? Means is the UOM, base unit of measure. Okay. So for this also we have an annotation. What is the annotation? @ semantics dot. This is also unit, I think. Yeah, this is also unit. So this is sales unit. This is base unit. So we'll say base unit, and that is sales unit. So both are units. So because both are units, the same annotation, field level annotation will be relevant for them. Okay. Then you have currency code. So what is the currency code? So first I will write the annotation for currency codes @ semantics dot currency code true. What is the currency code? It is P dot WAEI. Yeah, WAER. Yeah, SD document currency. Okay, so WAER key is your document currency. Then what I will do is I will write the delta relevant field semantics @ semantics dot system date. Okay, there should be a comma here first of all. This one. This is a very important annotation which says semantics dot system date time dot last change that true. This is designating the field which will follow this annotation as the delta relevant field. Exactly what we did in our data source. We told the BW that your delta identifying field is last change that. Same thing which we are doing here is with this annotation, we are providing the property to the field that this is my last change that. And what is that? Is k dot upd update timestamp. And then I will put it as a name as last change at. So this is what I am designating this particular field as my delta identifying field. Then what we'll do is there is some numerator and denominator which we will use later on. Okay, so don't worry about them right now. This is the numerator. So what I'll say is this is the numerator. This everything we will use when we will deal with the transformations. Okay, so there you will understand why I have used that. Okay, then you have P dot denominator, which is UMVKN. Denominator, yes. So this is the denominator. Then what do we have? Okay, now actually the order quantity. Now we'll say the actual quantity which is there in the item P dot KWMENGE. Yeah, this is a cumulative order quantity in sales unit. Remember that, okay? So this is a sales unit. So we will designate this with an annotation. What is the annotation? Semantics dot quantity unit of measure, and the unit of measure for sales unit is this. Okay, so we will say sales unit. You got it? So what I did was first I designated the VRKME as my unit of sales, which is a sales unit, and I have renamed that column to sales unit. Now that column name, I am telling that this guy is basically having a unit, and that unit is sales unit. Okay, and then I will say no, this, yeah, quantity, yeah, correct. This is correct. Then we have another quantity which is K. Okay, let me put a comma after this. KBMENG. I think, let's see, KBMENG, yeah. Cumulative uncontained sales unit. No, this is confirmed quantity, right? Yeah, confirmed quantity. So this is cumulative order quantity and this is cumulative confirmed quantity. Both are quantities. So same thing I'll do here also. Semantics dot quantity unit of measure. And because this is also sales unit, I will just say sales unit. I am not taking anything for base unit yet. Okay, I'm not taking the quantity in base unit. I'm just taking the quantities in sales unit. Why? Because in BW, we are going to do some conversions, okay, from sales unit to base unit. So that's why I'm not taking the base unit KPIs, only the sales unit. Okay, so this is done. Then what do we have? We have the net price, so we can do net PR. And finally, what we have is net WR, which is the currency code. P dot net WR. Net WR as the net value order item document currency. Yes. Okay. And this is document currency. So we will say, where is my document currency? This currency code equals to true. Now this one also you can mention as SD document currency. Okay, I'm designated this, and this one I will put it to this guy. So I will put a semantics here at the rate semantics dot, this is now amount. So amount will have currency code and currency code is this one. Let me see, syntax is correct. Yeah, okay, so I did not give the name of the view. So let me keep the name same as our header. I'll just change it to item. So we'll take this and then we'll go here. We will put the name ZV sales ITM BT2. Okay, so the SQL view is there. Let me make sure everything is fine. Okay, I'll just also write this KWMNG KBMNG. This is cumulative order quantity in sales unit. Okay, and this is my cumulative confirmed quantity. Yeah, so what we'll do is we will do a conversion, okay? The quantity conversion in BW later on in transformation. That's why I'm taking these. So if you see that you have the cumulative order quantity in sales unit, you will have cumulative confirmed quantity in sales unit, you have net price and net value. So basically all these fields I have taken except for this guy. Material type is not there. MTART, and did I take MTART? No, MTART I have not taken. Okay, it's not there. So I'm not taking the enhancement because I'm going to enhance this CDS view later on. So I'm just taking all the fields except the enhancement in a CDS view. And this is a normal CDS view, meaning I'm not taking any standard CDS views. This is directly based on tables, which is your Z view, this one from VBAP as the main, left auto join VBAC as K on this condition VBLN, and left auto join another table for the fiscal year variant, which is T001 as T, and then K dot bookers as bookers, which is the condition for the join. And then I am designated the sales document number, item number of the sales document as these are the two key fields, and then remaining ones are all different dimensions, and then these are units and these are quantities. Finally, the quantities are there, and then I have the currency also. Net WR is the currency, so I have kept currency there.
Devanshu, in ABAP, we had to maintain the field sequence as per the table. Do we need to do the same thing down here?
No, you don't need to do any field sequence there.
Okay.
So I'm activating this. Okay. Now, these are field level annotations I have given. One of the most important one which I told you is This one, semantics dot system date dot last change that as true. This you have to provide in order for the CDS view to know that this is how you will identify the change. Now, there has to be some view level annotations also if you want the view to have delta capability. So for a CDS view to have delta capability, you have to do two things. First is view level annotations. Second is field level annotations. So we gave the field level annotation, which is identifying the delta identifying field, delta field. The view level annotations we have not provided yet. So what were the mandatory view level annotations for the full load? Can somebody tell me please? Suresh, tell me the mandatory annotations which we used for full load. Remember, first we didn't include them. It did not create any operational data provider, but later on when we included those annotations, it generated an operational data provider. What are those two mandatory annotations? This is an interview question, okay?
Right.
BW4HANA interview question. You have to remember those two mandatory annotations. Okay. Any BW annotation. BW is an analytics system. So all the annotations will start with analytics. Then what is the next one?
Data extraction.
First is data category. You have to define the data category. And what is the data category here? It is fact for us, not aggregation level. We don't want cube. You can also give cube, but unnecessary. I don't want to create the transient provider. Dimension is there, fact is there. So I'll choose fact. Next, what is the annotation? Again, it will all annotations for BW will start with analytics dot data extraction dot what? Tell me quickly.
Enabled.
Correct. Enabled. True. Okay. Next, now this is full mode enabled. Right now, this CDS view is full mode enabled or full load enabled, not delta enabled. Now we will add for the delta enabled. Okay. So what is that? Add analytics dot. It is under data extraction only. Okay. And then you will see something called delta by element. Okay. Click that. Under that, you will have these further sub annotations. So it's a hierarchy of annotations. So first is analytics, because everything for BW will be under analytics. Then you have data extraction. And then you have, first is data extraction enabled. Enabled should be there. And then it should be delta enabled also. So delta by element. What is the elements? You have to define the element. You have to define the name of that element. You have to define if you want to detect the deleted records, if you want to have the max delay in seconds, which is again the timestamp difference between a saving in the application server buffer versus a commit in the database. So there can be few seconds gap. So that's why to take care of that, we deal with max delay in seconds, and then ignore deletion after days. So that means after 1 year, you don't want to, identify deletions beyond 1 year. Within 1 year, you want to identify all deletions, but beyond 1 year, don't want. If you want to do that, then you have ignore deletions also. So these are the 4 very important delta relevant view level annotations. Okay. So first we will give the name. What is the name of that particular field? Can somebody tell me that?
Change date.
How did you get that name? Last change date. Why are you saying that?
Because
that's the field name we have provided.
Correct. That is the field name we have enabled with this. Right. So that means you have to give that name here. Okay. So first you have to designate the field, that field with the field level annotation. Then you have to tell the view that, okay, this is your field. Okay. Next, what you have to do? Add analytics dot data extraction dot delta by element dot. Now you have name you have given. Now detect deleted records. Okay. True. That means you want to identify deletions. This was not possible with the generic delta. Remember, generic delta is without deletion, but this particular CDS view annotation based delta is capable to identify deleted records. Okay, and then what we will use finally?
Safety interval.
It's not really safety interval, but it is there to just make sure you don't miss any records. But it's not exactly what safety interval does in the generic delta. It's not, I mean, I would not call it safety interval, but I would call it just a safety net to not miss the records. But it does not exactly work as safety interval. Then you have max delay in seconds to make sure you don't miss the records. But again, I have not found this to work exactly same as safety interval, but this is still there for CDS views in order for not to miss the data. Okay. All right.
Devanshu, how does it work?
Same thing. If you have the buffer, application buffer versus the timestamp difference, then internally CDS view it takes care of that particular difference, and it it will not miss any data. But exactly it doesn't work as safety interval. Like in the backend, how this particular annotation is working, even I'm not 100% sure, but it is recommended to keep this so that you don't have the problem. But if you see in the selection, like in the selection, in the DTP selection, we could see the safety interval working exactly, right? When we define in the generic delta, but in max delay in seconds, you will not be able to see in the DTP selection. That's why I am saying that you cannot exactly see that this is really working with as a safety interval or not. But in the source side, it is recommended to keep it. Okay, if I don't give this, it is still relevant. Okay, you don't have to provide the value. There are defaults. So for every annotation, there will be defaults. So detect deleted records. If you don't say true or false, by default it is true. And max delay in seconds, if you don't provide anything, then by default it is 1800 seconds. That's why by default it came at 1800 seconds, right? So if you see this, 1800 automatically came. But if I remove this, then also it is fine, which is telling 1800. Yes, if you want to specify something less than 1800, then you can say that I want to keep it as 600 seconds, which is my 10 minutes, say for example, or 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, something like that. Only when you want this to be false, you can mention that. But for a good readability, so that people don't get confused, keep that. Otherwise, people will say, oh, you did not put the value. If they don't know that default concept, they will get confused. So it's a best practice to keep the value, even if it is the default, still keep the value, explicitly mention the value. Okay. So these are the three most important annotations which will enable the delta, and this will also enable ODQs, operational delta queues will be used. So for understanding purpose, you can say that this is a safety interval, but exactly how it works, you will not be able to see in the DTP selection, but it works. It gives you the same kind of safety net which the safety interval in the generic delta gives. Okay, so yes, for the understanding argument's sake, let's say this is safety interval. Okay, but it exactly does not work like that. So I'm not 100% sure the backend mechanism of this. But please keep this, okay? Just for you to be on a safe side, you don't miss any records. This can be your safety interval for CDS views. So detect deleted records, true. Last change that is the element name, and then max delay in second is your 300. You can also do the fourth one, but I don't usually do the fourth one, but you can keep the fourth one also, which is your ignore deletion after days. So I don't want to provide that, meaning any deletion, whether it happens for a document which is 1 year old or 2 years old or 3 years old, I want to identify deletions. So I will not put that annotation. So let's Control S, click on save, and then Control F3 to activate it. Okay, let's see if it gets activated. There's another way to provide annotations. which is like in the curly brackets. So if you don't want to repeat something which is common, see this part is common, right, in all the three annotation. If you don't want to repeat it, then there is another way, and that way is within the curly brackets. You can write just one time, you can add element name, then within the curly brackets, last changed at, comma, detect deleted records, comma, max delay in seconds. That also you can write. So both options are there. In fact, you can combine this enable true and all these inside this delta extraction, because this is common. See, this part is common between this and this, all the three. So you can even combine them within curly brackets. So it's just that what way you prefer. I prefer this way because it is very clear and you can easily read that in different lines. The curly brackets, if it is too many annotations, it becomes a little confusing, but there is also that way. So this is there, so it's activated successfully. Now let's see, let's quickly do the data preview. So open with data preview and we have 86 records in the three tables, VBAP, VBAK and T001. So see, I did not have to fill any setup tables. I did not have to do any extraction queue or versus the ODQs, etc. Right? So the entire data is immediately available because this is all virtual access. So now quickly we'll create the data source based on this. So we will select the name. Okay. So the data source will be based on this because this is my operational data provider which got generated. Okay. So let's quickly go to BW side, data sources, ODP CDS, yes. Right click, new data source. Next, ODP CDS proposal from operational data provider, yes. And then give the name. Okay, you will have the particular operational data provider. Click next. This I will give ZDS underscore the name, and then the name will be tran item. That one was tran header. This is tran, actually sales item. Sales item. Okay, this is transaction data. So I'll choose transaction data. Click on finish. Okay, so now we'll see the extraction. Now extraction only has one delta process. You cannot choose now. In the drop down there is just one possibility and the delta properties will be disabled. You cannot now play around with this. That is only possible in the generic delta. Okay. So now what is the property? It says override delta with deletions and it is ODQs, not BW local. So this is no more your BW local. That means your source side will identify delta, not BW side. BW doesn't need to provide any selections or any criteria to identify delta. It is inbuilt in my CDS view itself. So CDS view will, with the help of this last change that field, will identify. And I did not have to, do what? I did not have to shorten the value to 14 here. I am using the field as it is. That means the CDS view based, annotation based delta does not need you to shorten the value to the short timestamp value. It can work with long timestamp format. Okay. So this is what is the difference, and it will also identify deletions. Okay. So everything else is same. Fields are same. Everything which we gave has come in, and you can see ODQ change mode entity counter is also there, which is by default. It gets added. So we will save it and we will activate this data source.
There are like no more V3 jobs, right? If you go with this approach.
Sorry, your voice is very bleak. And I would request you to hold on to your questions, please. No questions right now. I'll open the forum for the question and answer. We'll deal with them at that time. So now we have the data source. So in the data source, we will again right click and say explore data flow. That's how we create the data flow in BW for HANA. So we have these two nodes. So let's bring it down. And then we will create an ADSO. I'll just create one right now, not two layers. Okay, because we are anyways over time. So I just want to quickly finish this. So I will just say ZS underscore SDITM2. Okay, and then I will connect this. And then I will activate my data flow. Okay, save it first. Info area is batch 2. Batch 2. And then we have the ZDF underscore. What did we give the name? ZDF underscore CDS ITM BT2. Okay. Data flow sales item via CDS. Okay, let's click on finish. And then you can just do the layout and then control F3. So right now I'm just activating the flow, guys. I have not created the ADSO, actual ADSO. Okay. And then let me now create the ADSO. So create ADSO, you can right click and say create ADSO. It will bring you this, and this will be my trans sales item. Okay. Templates is the data source, which is fine. Okay. So by default, it is showing me standard ADSO, right change log, but I can change it to the staging ADSO as well, but let's keep it standard ADSO. That's fine. Then the details, see key fields automatically it took, but I have to manage the keys right now. So sales document and sales item automatically key has been taken here, and then SG item 2 is no more, not there, right? Okay, and then key fields, non-key fields are here. Again, I can just say key, and these are characteristics. Okay. And then I will add a group for time. Okay. So time is document date. We can move the document date to time. Document date. Okay, to time. Then we have some units. So I can add unit. Actually, units and currencies, both I will keep it in the same thing. Unit underscore currency. Okay. So what are our units and currencies? We have document currency, sales unit, and base unit, sales unit. So we'll keep it under unit and currency just to have a better picture. So key fields are these, and then characteristics are these, and then requested delivery date also I can keep it in my time. Okay. Distribution division, fiscal year variant also I can know, that's fine. Sold to party controlling material group. Last change that is the UTC timestamp limited net price. Oh yeah, and then I'll add a field for key figures. Key figure. Okay, so in key figures, what I will do is net value, net price, and okay, let me go to key figures. These two are actually key figures, so I'll move it here. Okay, so we have key figures, cumulative order quantity, cumulative confirmed quantity, net price, net value. We have the units and currencies, we have the time, and we have the characteristics and key fields. Okay, we'll control S, save it, and then control F3, activate it. So this is just a simple flow for the item. I just wanted to show you that. So we'll quickly run the delta initialization and then the change. Okay, so ADSO is ready. Go back to your data flow. You see that the background changed to blue. Now the transformation, right click, create transformation quickly. Go to finish. By default, it will be HANA runtime, and we leave it as it is. Fields will be 1:1, so no problem there. So see, it is HANA runtime, and rules are all 1:1, and the technical rules is the ODP calculation, which is record mode, which is fine. We'll leave it as it is. Control F3, activate. Okay, and then once it is activated successfully, then go back. The transformation will change its color. DTP is not yet there. Right click, create DTP. Click on OK. Okay, click on next. Yeah, finalize it. And then it will show you the value delta or full. So it is by default delta, but you can also have full delta because the data source supports delta, and everything else is the same. We'll just press Control F3 to activate. Okay, done. So come back to a data flow. You'll see DTP has changed color. Control F3 to activate your data flow, just to make sure that the data flow reflects all the updated objects. Now we'll run the DTP. This is delta. Okay. So how many records should come? How many records were there in the CDS view? 86, right?
86.
Open with data preview. 86 records should come up. Okay, so let's run it. Jumping to cockpit. I know sometimes it can be a little bit irritating, but once you get used to it, then you will say that within SAP GUI, it's irritating. Cockpit is better. Okay, it's still running. So let's refresh it. So total 86 records got loaded. So now, okay, question to maybe Suresh. Will this allow me to change data or not?
It has change log, so I guess it would allow.
If it does not have change log, will it still allow?
It has active one inbound, so it should allow.
Exactly. So 2 tables it will allow. So I'll just click on activate right now. So we'll activate the 86 records, and now we'll make a change, and we'll try to delete the data one document. We'll try to do that as well. Okay. So now the 86 data is fine. So we'll go to, sorry, where did I close the DTP? Okay, that's fine. So we have our data flow. Okay. So we'll click on the ADSO node, which will open the ADSO. We'll go to the properties, go to the DDIC. Oh, DTP opened up. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sometimes you have to click in the space and then come back again, and then it opens the ADSO. Okay, so go to DDIC. So we have the active table. So active table will have 86 records. 86 records. Let's filter on our favorite document number 49. Okay, so it has 007 as AU GRU, which is the reason, and quantity also now it will have, right? So we have 20 quantity. So as you can see, let's go back to S4. I think I have to log in again. So let me log into S4. Okay, and bring it here. So for S4, we'll go to VA02 and we'll see our
Devanshu,
49.
now we should be checking ODQ on us. Can we check that?
That's right. That's right. So now delta, let me see if initialization pointer is there. Okay, I activated it also. So anyways, if you go back, you will see that this is delta initialization. Okay, this will be delta initialization. So now what we'll say is we will go to our ODQ mon. So let me open another one. Now this should, as per our theory, this should have created a queue in ODQ mon. Let's see. You see this? ZV sales ITM BT2. What is this? This is the SQL view name of the CDS view. So if you see this, ZV sales item BT2. So same thing now is there in the queue. So queue has been created. Now that request for this, which table will be populated, guys? For the delta initialization, what is the ODQ table?
C.
ODQ data underscore C.
Correct, correct. So we'll see if it is visible here. No, it is not visible here. Okay, so we'll go inside this. Okay, and it is created by BW remote, and this is the subscription. So a subscription is successfully created, and the DTP is the guy or the agent who created the subscription. and it is based on one request ID is there. Let me see if it shows here itself. No, it will only show, okay. So if you click this calculate data volume, it will show the rows, the original size, the compressed size, what is the compression percentage, compression rate is 91%, data is compressed, so on and so forth. So if I go inside this, it is storage is ODQ data underscore C for the initialization. So this means that annotation based delta is now using the ODQs. So now we'll quickly go to 49 and then now we'll change the quantity. Okay. From 20, we will make it to 18, for example. Okay. There, this is fine. Okay. So you hit enter twice and then save it. So your 49 is saved. So first check is in the CDS view itself. So you right click and say open with data preview. And our filter for 49 should show 18 now. Okay. So the value is 18. So it will only show the final value. And now this should come up. Both cumulative order quantity and confirmed quantity both are now 18. So what we'll do is we'll quickly run the DTP. So we'll open the DTP again. Display DTP. And then delta. So I'll execute in background. Come on. Okay, so one data record got successfully. This is let's refresh to make sure that it's finished. One data record, and this is now delta, right? This is not delta initialization, this is delta. And this will create a new subscription in the ODQ mon. Is that right? This will create a new subscription. Do you agree, guys?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, only one.
It should use existing
No,
subscription.
it will be
More
it will
entry.
be using the existing subscription. Yeah.
Yes. So I deliberately said that just to make sure how many people are awake. So remember the principle. The delta initialization creates a subscription. Delta does not create a subscription. Delta uses the existing subscription. Okay. So if you go to ODQ mon, go to the queues again, we'll do a refresh. Okay. And now you will see subscription is 1, requests are 2. First request is delta initialization, second request is delta. So if you go inside, and which table, guys, which table you use for delta?
ODQ data.
Correct, ODQ data. So see, subscriptions are 1, we are in subscriptions node. So double click on this. Now you will see 2 requests. First request is going to ODQ data C, and the second is going to ODQ data, which is your delta changes. This delta identification is happening in the S4 side. BW is not sending any selections to identify delta. So that's why this is override data with deletions possible also. Okay. So we'll quickly activate this request and then we'll see the data. And then we'll try to delete. That's the last part. Sorry, I know I'm way over time, but just bear with me for 5 more minutes and then we'll end the session. So we'll activate the data. So there'll be load request and there'll be activation request. There'll be 2 separate requests, guys. Okay, details of load request and activation request is this one. 10:07 we loaded, 10:09 we activated. So you can see the inbound table and you can see the active table. So activated is successful. So inbound should not have any data. So there is no data in the inbound table. Okay, so now let's quickly go there to our data preview and refresh. No, did we, what change we did? Sorry. We didn't do any change, right?
Change the quantities.
18, yeah, 18 was visible. 18 is visible. Oh, this is CDS view. I'm sorry. Why am I getting confused? This is CDS view. So what we'll do is we'll go to the DSO active table. Okay, and then we will. Why it is 86 only? Shouldn't it be 87, or is 86 correct?
86 is correct. It's an override.
It's an override, exactly. So now 49, if you see, the value will change to 18. Okay. Initially it was 20. We didn't see that, but now it is 18. Now let's quickly, last part, we'll do deletion. For deletion, what I will do is, I will copy this into a new sales order. So I think the way you can copy it is,
VA03 you have option.
Yeah, not here, right?
No, not here, not here. VA03.
Okay, let me go to VA03. Yeah, thanks for that. I forgot the steps to copy. Let's go to VA03. Okay, VA03, then we'll give 49, and then
sorry, VA01 I think. VA01 I think. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Let me check. Create, change, edit.
Yeah, it's VA01. You'll have a reference on the top.
Oh yeah, I was looking for reference. You're right. You're right. Create with reference. Yeah. So this is
the
you
have to give order type. Order type
OR, I
something.
think, right? OR. Not 0R. OR. OR is for regular sales order. So what it's saying is, okay, let me go back and do that. So VA01 will have an option called create with reference. This is just to copy the sales order. If you want to copy the sales order from one sales order to another, you don't want to create from scratch. So create with reference, give the order type. Order type is OR, standard order. And our 49 is also standard order. So we have the OR, we'll create with reference, and then you come to the order number, because we know the order number, we are not dealing with quotations. Then you give 49 as your order number, okay? And then you say copy. So it will enter a reference I gave, right? 49, yeah, this one. And then say copy. So what it will do is, it will copy this into a new order number. Order number you don't have control on, that will be system generated, but all the other details is the same. So we'll change the quantity here, say for example, to 40. Okay, and then we will save this. So it will say a new order. Yeah, that's fine. Incomplete is fine. That's not a problem. New order is created 63. Order number 63 is created. So now we'll quickly run the delta. Okay, so we'll say execute in background, execute. This will bring one record. They should bring one record, and that will be for order number 63. Let's check that, and then we will delete it. So one record is there. Let me refresh. It should be finishing. Yeah. So now I want to check the data first in the inbound table. So you go to manage request, and then you can check the data in the inbound table itself with the content to make sure that it is order number 63. So we have order number VPLN 63, which has come. Okay, so let's go back. And now we will activate the request. Okay, so request successfully activated. Now we will quickly check the active data table for 63. So we have the 40 and 40 as the order quantity, which is there. And of course, automatically net WR got calculated by 40 into 3, 120, that's fine. But this is the one we changed the order quantity 40 and 40. So 63 is sitting there. Now what we'll do is, we will go to 63 and we will delete it. Okay. So our order number will go back, go to VA02. Deletion is possible in VA02, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So you say menu, sales document, delete there. So in VA02, you go inside the sales document and say delete. So really want to delete the standard order? Yes, I want to delete 63. So it says standard order 63 deleted. Now in the CDS view, what will be the value of this order number 63?
40. It should be 0 or nothing.
0?
It should be deleted.
63 record is deleted.
You should not
So
get
that
it.
means, are you saying 63 will be visible or not?
No, it is not visible.
It should not be visible. So you see 86 records. 86 records means let's quickly filter. And 63 is not there. So that means at the source side, it is not there. Now, what will the DTP bring? Let's check. So execute in background. Because our CDS view is capable of identifying the deletion. So will the CDS view identify the deletion? Let's see. Excuse me. Okay, let's see a quiz question for you guys. For deletions, it identified the record. There is one data record. Okay. So for deletion, what is the value of ODQ change mode and ODQ entity counter?
EN0.
-1.
Let's see. It is D and I think 0, if I'm not wrong, but I also don't remember. Let's see. We have in the, I think here. Yeah, there. So for the deletion, okay, for CDS view based deletion, the value is D and 0. So let's see if this came in or not. Okay, because see, CDS view is only one image, not two images. It's not before and after. So that's why it is D and 0. It should be, as per my understanding, it should be D and 0. Well, how we can check? Let's go to the, first of all, make sure it is delta. Yes. Now we'll go to manage request, and in the manage request, we'll see the data in the inbound table. Okay. So in the inbound table, you go to contents, and then you will be able to see the value. D record mode is D, but the value of ODQ change mode is D. And yeah, it is 0. It is showing blank here. But in the backend, if you see, the value is 0. It is showing up as blank here. So let's go to inbound table of the ADSO to check whether my hypothesis is correct. So DDIC inbound table. Okay. There is one record. Record mode is D. And the value of ODQ change mode and is D and 0. Okay. So the value when it is deleted, it is D and 0, and the record mode, of course, the interpretation of the record mode is D. So that's what it came in. Now we'll go back and we will quickly activate the data. So now in the active table, what should happen? And in the change log, what should happen?
Active table will not see the record in active table.
Yes. So in active table, 63 is there. Refresh it, it's gone. But in the change log, what will happen, guys? Let's see the change log.
We have the changes.
Record mode D should be updated.
History of 63 will be there.
Okay, let's check that. So we had a new image and we had a reverse image. Whenever there is a deletion, change log will store it as R. In active data table and inbound table, we saw the record mode was D for the deletion. But when you activate it, when it goes to change log, it stores with record mode R. And of course, there was no before and after, because immediately when we created, we did not change it, we deleted it immediately. So it will come and sit with R, because when you further send it to another DSO or another cube like DSO, data mart DSO, they always identify R, not D. The further target will identify it as R. That's why changelog will always store it as R. Okay. So this is how the annotation based delta, which will use the ODQ, ODQ mon, the queues, it will use the queues, and it will also give you deletions. Your assignment, what the one which you have to do is For the generic delta, do exactly this. Create a new order, delete it, and see if the generic delta identifies a deletion or not. Okay, so with that, we will stop the class for today. I don't have too much time for questions, but we'll still take few questions. So